So the last piece of the puzzle here I want to cover is the driver program and the client code, which is what sets all the wheels in motion. And as always, you can get this in my GitHub repository, in the EX1 project, in the RSocket folder, in the live lessons GitHub repository. And here we are on that repository. You can see that we've got the test folder open now, and we've got the client beans class. I'm not going to walk through this in detail. This is what we talked through in the other slides. This just has all that code. It's pretty well structured, I think. It's not too hard to understand, and does a nice job of showing what's going on. We also have the connect response handler, and this is the thing that gets the response back from the server. So when the server sends us back their response saying, hey, connection was received, connection's in progress, we go ahead and print that out, and then we say, thank you, connection complete. So that's the end of the acknowledgement, this kind of three-way handshake that takes place between the client and the server. Here's the Zippy proxy. It's got all the proxy methods. Again, I'm not going to walk through all of them in detail. They're pretty cool. They show off a whole bunch of interesting things. We've looked at most of the key parts already, but if you want to kind of see how it all works, this is the place to go. Let's take a look at one fun thing in here that is probably worth a quick look. One of the things we can do is get all the quotes, and you can see here that we take the subscription request and the Zippy RSocket requester, and we go ahead and call this get all quotes helper method here. And that takes the requester and the tuple, which is the subscription, the second part of the tuple that contains the subscription, and it goes ahead and sets up a call to the get all quotes endpoint on the server, puts the subscription data in that call, and then it calls retrieve flux, which sends the request over to the server and then gets back all the Zippy quotes, and all those Zippy quotes get kind of streamed back there. We also have some other stuff here that's used to close everything down when we're done. And I think there's one other thing that I should try to find if I can. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. For the thing that's doing the get random quotes, we also put a delay on the client side to delay the sending of the random indices 1 second at a time. So we're kind of delaying things in the client, demonstrating how these things can run completely in parallel. Here's the ZippyQuotes test. This is a Spring Boot test, so it'll automatically launch the Zippy application. And we have some fields that keep track of things like the Zippy proxy that we auto wire and the number of indices we want to take a look at when we generate things randomly. And then over here, we have the test subscribe and cancel. This is one of the tests that we run. And so we get ourselves a random subscription ID. We use our proxy to subscribe that ID with the server. And then once we've subscribed, we go ahead and see what happened. So we use the step verifier to make sure that we got back a confirmed status, which is what we expect. And then we go ahead and cancel this particular subscription. And that will go over there asynchronously. We get back a response there. We check to make sure that we indeed were canceled, which we are. And then just for kicks, we try to cancel some random subscription that we have not subscribed. And what we should get back there, of course, is an error, which we do. So this just tests to make sure everything's working properly. We also test valid subscriber to get quotes. This is a fun example too. We make ourselves a subscription. We go and get all the quotes that correspond to that subscription. And we're just going to take the first 5 of these things because we want to check to make sure what the quotes were, and I didn't want to check the entire database. So what we do then is we go ahead and take that ZippyQuotes flux, and then we check to see the matches to see if they match what we expect. And of course they do, which is good. There's also ways of testing for an invalid subscriber. So we go ahead and set up something and we confirm. We set up a subscription that's confirmed that we cancel that subscription. And then we go ahead and try to use the canceled subscription in order to get the results. And of course, we get back an illegal access error because we canceled the subscription, so you can't get the results back anymore. And then the final test here is a real fun one called test random quotes, test get random quotes. And first thing it does is it makes a bunch of random indices. And it does this by calling into the Zippy proxy, and it says, how many quotes do we have, please? And it goes and it sends a request to the over to the server and it says, please tell me how many quotes you have. So it gets that back. And then it uses that value, the number of quotes we have, in order to generate random integers of that many within the range that we have. So we'd want to generate some number of random quotes within the range that we've identified by knowing the max number of quotes. So that comes back as a mono to an int array. So we get this mono as an int array, which we cache. And then we go ahead and we call the getRandomQuotes method, passing in that array. So now we're going to go over and look up and try to get the random quotes. And you can see here, we've kind of looked at this before. This goes ahead and makes the request for the random quotes, gets them back as a flux. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the block call, the one place we use the block call, to get the array of random indices. And then we check to make sure that they match. We check to make sure what we got back made sense in terms of what we requested. So having shown all that, let's just run the whole thing real quick. Don't think we have a lot of time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time walking through the output, but I encourage you to try running this program. It shows off all kinds of really interesting things about how RSocket works. I printed out the thread IDs so you can tell where things are occurring. I've carefully tagged all the modules so you can see what's happening and where it's happening and so on and so forth. And I tried to use clever markers so you could tell when we're going into a method and when we're leaving a method and so on and so forth. And of course, the other part that's fun is we have lots of ZippyQuotes. So if you were to take a look at all this stuff, when all is said and done, you could see that it starts out with connection management taking place. And you can see that there's this interaction between the connection management side on the server and the client side to have this handshake that takes place. And then we go ahead and start doing the requests for various things. You can see we subscribe, we cancel, and so on. We get a bunch of different quotes. And then when we're all done and everything shuts down, we disconnect, and that causes the client to tell the server, I'm going away now, and the server shuts down the client resources so it doesn't leak them once the client goes away. So that's the end of the walkthrough of that example. It's a really fun example, and I think it'll give you a different perspective on reactive mechanisms for doing messaging in a distributed environment.